One evening, a new challenge arose. The millionaire had received unsettling news about his health. He was visibly shaken, and his usual composure was replaced by vulnerability. She moved beside him, offering reassurance through presence and gentle words. She reminded him of previous recoveries, small victories, and the support available to him. Her care was steady, grounded, and unwavering. In that moment, he leaned on her fully, acknowledging silently that she was someone he could trust completely. Her role continued to expand subtly. She began coordinating with the medical team, advising on his comfort, and ensuring that his needs were met in a personalized way. Her insights were valued, and her ability to anticipate needs before they arose became a hallmark of her presence. The millionaire's trust in her had grown to the point where he sometimes relied on her instincts over formal guidance. She had become more than a housekeeper. She was a cornerstone of his daily life. Even with these responsibilities, she never lost her humility. She understood that care was a quiet power, one that did not seek recognition. Her satisfaction came from seeing the millionaire comfortable, reassured, and at ease. She took pride in the small, often invisible victories, the moments when he relaxed into trust, when a smile appeared unexpectedly, or when tension dissolved because of her attentiveness. Her journey was not without emotional weight. She carried concern, empathy, and sometimes fear, knowing that her actions directly affected someone's well-being. Yet these feelings did not deter her. Instead, they fueled her dedication, reminding her that every thoughtful action, every careful adjustment, and every moment of attentive presence mattered deeply. The days were long, but each evening brought reflection and quiet satisfaction. She would sit alone in her apartment, replaying the moments where her care had made a difference. The trust she had earned was tangible, a testament to her patience, empathy, and steadfast dedication. She realized that her journey had transformed her. Understanding of her own capabilities and the profound impact of genuine care through the challenges and trials. She had learned that true influence is often quiet, unseen, and rooted in consistency. Her ability to anticipate needs, provide comfort, navigate difficult situations, had created a bond of trust that no one could replicate. She understood that her role, though once seen as ordinary, had become extraordinary in its significance. As she prepared for another night of rest, she felt a sense of purpose and quiet triumph. Her presence mattered, her actions made a difference, and her empathy had become a force that shaped the life of someone who had once seemed untouchable. She was no longer just a housekeeper. She was a trusted companion, a caregiver, and a steady presence in a world that often felt uncertain. She drifted to sleep with the knowledge that the coming days would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities to provide care, comfort, and reassurance. Her journey continued, guided by her heart, her instincts, and the unwavering commitment to the well-being of someone who would come to rely on her in ways no one else could imagine. Time moved forward, and her life, once ordinary, had transformed in ways she had never anticipated. The bond between her and the millionaire had grown into something steady, grounded, and mutually respectful. She had become an indispensable part of his life, not because of her position, but because of the unwavering care, attentiveness, and empathy she had shown day after day. The mansion, once just a workplace, had become a place of profound responsibility and connection. Her days were long, but each moment carried meaning. She moved through the estate, not merely performing tasks, but ensuring that every detail contributed to comfort, calm, and ease. She prepared meals with care, adjusted pillows with precision, and listened when he chose to speak. Her actions were deliberate, thoughtful, and consistent. They had created a sense of security and trust that was unshakable. She had learned that real influence came not from authority, but from presence, patience, and genuine understanding. Over time, she began to notice subtle changes in herself. Confidence had grown quietly within her. She realized that her instincts, once thought ordinary, were extraordinary in the impact they had on someone who needed care deeply and sincerely. She carried herself with a quiet assurance, not seeking praise, but knowing that her contributions mattered profoundly. The humility that had always guided her was now paired with a sense of purpose she had never fully experienced before. The millionaire, once distant and guarded, had become reliant on her guidance and presence. He began to include her in decisions that were personal and practical, from daily routines to larger choices about his comfort and well-being. He valued her judgment, respected her insight, and trusted her in ways he had never trusted anyone else. Their relationship had evolved beyond employer and housekeeper. It was a bond rooted in understanding, empathy, and shared experiences. Evenings were a time of quiet reflection for her. After completing the day's tasks, she would sit in her apartment, thinking of the small victories that had shaped the day. She remembered moments when her attention had made a difference, the relief on his face when she anticipated his needs, the gratitude expressed in a simple gesture or a quiet word, and the moments of connection that went unspoken but were deeply felt. These reflections filled her with a sense of accomplishment and purpose that was both personal and profound. Her family noticed changes in her as well. She carried herself with a steadier presence, her words calm and confident, her actions deliberate and compassionate. She shared stories in fragments, careful not to boast, but conveying the sense of responsibility and significance she had discovered. Her younger siblings looked at her with admiration, seeing not just a caretaker of the mansion, but someone who had grown into a role that demanded heart, skill, and wisdom. The transformation was not only external, she had grown emotionally, learning patience in new ways and understanding the subtleties of human connection. She realized that care was not a simple act of service. It was an art of noticing, anticipating, and responding with empathy and respect. Her role had expanded beyond what she could have imagined, shaping not just the life of the millionaire, but her own understanding of what it meant to make a difference. There were challenges still. Occasionally, she faced skepticism from other staff or subtle doubts about her influence, but these challenges were less intimidating now, for she had confidence in her purpose and the knowledge that her actions were guided by genuine care. She learned to navigate these moments with quiet resilience, maintaining harmony while staying true to her principles. Her consistency and dedication slowly earned the respect and admiration of those around her, even if silently. A turning point came when the millionaire decided to make a gesture of gratitude. He ensured that her efforts were recognized in ways that could support her future, offering financial assistance, opportunities, and encouragement to pursue dreams she had once thought impossible. She accepted these gestures with humility, understanding that the real reward had always been the difference she had made and the bond of trust she had cultivated. It was a recognition of both her care and the person she had become. Her work continued with renewed purpose. Each day, she approached her responsibilities with a balance of skill, empathy, and attentiveness. She understood that her actions had a ripple effect, influencing not only the life of the millionaire, but the harmony of the household and the confidence of herself. The small details, the way she arranged a room, prepared a meal, or simply listened, carried significance that went beyond the ordinary. Her presence had become a force of comfort, stability, and understanding. Outside the mansion, she maintained her life with the same diligence and care. Her family continued to benefit from her support, her personal life balanced with the responsibility she carried. She had learned to manage her time, her energy, and her emotions with a skill born of necessity and honed through experience. Life had become demanding, but it was rich with meaning. She embraced it fully. Her bond with the millionaire deepened further as months passed. They shared quiet moments of understanding, simple conversations that reflected a connection built on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. She had become someone he relied on not only for care, but for insight, comfort, and companionship. Their relationship was a testament to the power of genuine human connection, showing that status, wealth, and title were secondary to presence, attentiveness, and kindness. In reflection, she understood that her journey had been extraordinary. Though it had begun in the most ordinary of roles, she had discovered that true impact came from caring consistently, observing keenly and responding with empathy. The skills and instincts she had once considered routine had proven invaluable, shaping a life in ways she could never have imagined. She realized that every small act of attention and care mattered profoundly. Her evenings were often spent quietly, thinking about the life she had helped shape for the millionaire and the ways she had grown personally. She recognized that her influence extended beyond the immediate tasks and routines. It was a subtle, enduring presence that brought comfort, stability, and trust. She felt a quiet sense of pride, not in wealth or recognition, but in the meaningful difference she had made. She woke up before the sun, the quiet of the early morning filling her small apartment. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery downstairs mixed with the faint scent of damp clothes that had hung overnight to dry. Her alarm clock had been buzzing for 5 minutes, but she didn't mind. She had learned long ago that being early meant she could do her best work. And in a job like hers, that mattered. She stretched and rubbed the sleep from her eyes, thinking about the long day ahead. Her hands were rough, from years of washing, scrubbing, and tidying. They told stories of effort and dedication. She didn't mind that. In fact, she felt proud. Each day she worked, she reminded herself that her labor kept her family going. Her mother's health was not the best, and her younger siblings depended on her for both financial support and guidance. It was not an easy life, but she had learned to find small joys in it by the time she stepped out of her apartment. The sky was a soft pink. She carried her bag with care, inside it a neatly packed lunch, a spare set of clothes, and a small notebook where she sometimes jotted down thoughts and observations. She walked briskly to the bus stop, her mind already preparing for the day. She knew the house she worked in like the back of her hand. The floors, the silverware, the delicate arrangement of flowers in the living room. Everything had its place, and she had to make sure it stayed that way. But she also knew that her role was more than cleaning and organizing. She had learned to read the moods of the people in the house, to anticipate needs before they were spoken. When she arrived at the grand estate, the towering gates casting long shadows over the driveway, she took a deep breath. This was her world during the day, a world of elegance and wealth far removed from her own modest surroundings. The staff greeted her politely, but without warmth. Many of them had been there for years and had grown used to the routines. But she had always stood out because she approached her work with a different kind of care. Not just because she wanted to do well, because she genuinely cared about the people she served. Her employer, the millionaire, was a man who carried himself with quiet authority. He was seldom in the house during the day, busy with meetings, investments, and travel. She had seen him briefly at breakfast or passing through the halls, always polite but distant. To the world, he was successful, composed, untouchable. To her, he was simply another human being, someone whose comfort she wanted to ensure. Even if he didn't notice her efforts most days, she started her tasks with practiced efficiency. The kitchen first, making sure everything was spotless and orderly. Then the laundry, folding clothes with precision. She moved through the house like a careful observer, noticing the smallest details. A smudge on a glass, a book slightly out of place, a picture frame needing dusting. Each correction was silent, invisible in its perfection, and yet she took satisfaction in it. It was a small victory in a world where she had so few. While she worked, she allowed herself to think, to dream quietly. She imagined a life where her family did not have to struggle so much, where her mother could rest without worry, where her siblings could pursue their ambitions without limitation. She knew those dreams might remain distant for now, but they gave her strength, a reason to push through exhaustion and long hours. Her mind often wandered to the people in the household. The children, when they came to visit, were polite but reserved. She remembered their birthdays, the books they liked, the small things that made them smile. She was more than a housekeeper to them, even if they didn't fully realize it. And then there was her employer. She had only interacted with him directly a few times, mostly in passing or during formal moments. Yet, she had begun to notice subtle things. The way he rubbed his temples when stressed. The quiet sighs that escaped him when no one was looking. These small observations made her feel connected in ways she didn't expect. By mid-morning, the sun was higher, casting light through the tall windows of the estate. She paused for a brief moment, looking out at the gardens. The flowers bloomed with a brilliance that was almost surreal, their colors vivid and alive. She wondered if anyone truly appreciated them, or if they were just another background in the grandeur of the home. She felt a pang of loneliness, a reminder of her own life outside these walls, modest and filled with struggles. Yet there was also a sense of calm in the routine, a rhythm that gave her day structure and purpose. As she moved to the bedrooms, she found herself humming softly, a habit she had developed over the years to keep spirits up and to ease the fatigue that often threatened to overwhelm her. She made the beds meticulously, fluffed the pillows, and ensured everything smelled fresh. Each room told a story, the children's toys neatly placed on shelves, the study organized with papers in precise order, the master bedroom reflecting a life of sophistication and success. She could feel the weight of that life in the quietness of the halls, the way the air seemed to hold itself with a kind of expectation. During a break, she sat by the window, sipping water and allowing herself a few minutes of reflection. She thought about the small things that made her role meaningful. The thank you notes left in her tray by previous guests, the occasional smile from someone who noticed her efforts, the satisfaction of knowing that even though her work was behind the scenes, it had an impact. She had learned that true influence often came quietly. Without applause or recognition, the afternoon brought new challenges. A spill in the kitchen required immediate attention. Stack of laundry had to be folded before the evening, and the gardener needed her help identifying a certain flower for a special arrangement. She moved quickly, her mind focused, yet always aware of the subtle needs of those around her. She knew that being proactive was part of her strength. Anticipating needs before they were voiced was not just about efficiency. It was about empathy, understanding, and connection. As evening approached, the household began to quiet down. The children had left, and the staff were completing their last tasks of the day. She took a moment to tidy the common areas, ensuring everything was ready for the next day. She felt a sense of fulfillment in this moment, a quiet pride that came from knowing she had done her best. The day had been long and exhausting, yet it had also been rich with small victories and the satisfaction of work done well. She locked up the house carefully, checking each door and window, making sure the estate was secure. Then she walked back to the bus stop, her steps slower now, the weight of the day settling into her shoulders. She thought about the people she cared for, the life she led, and the dreams she held close. Her heart carried both fatigue and hope, a mixture that had become familiar over the years. Back in her apartment, she prepared a simple dinner and sat down to eat quietly. The world outside her window was alive with lights and movement, but inside, there was peace. She reflected on the day, on the small moments that mattered, and on the life she was building, one careful, thoughtful action at a time. She knew that her story was ordinary in some ways, yet it was hers, filled with resilience, dedication, and the quiet strength that came from caring deeply for others. As she lay down to sleep, her body weary, but her spirit steady, she allowed herself a small smile. Tomorrow would be another long day, filled with challenges and tasks, but also with the quiet satisfaction that came from a life lived with purpose. She drifted to sleep with a sense of calm, knowing that even in the most ordinary moments, her presence mattered, and that her heart, her dedication, and her care would continue to shape the lives of those around her in ways that no one could fully measure. It started like any other morning. She woke up early, prepared her lunch, and took a moment to make sure her uniform was neat. There was a sense of routine that comforted her. The apartment was quiet, and the faint smell of brewing coffee from a neighbor drifting through the window was her gentle reminder that life was moving around her. Even if her own life sometimes felt paused, when she arrived at the estate, something felt different. The usual calm of the morning had a tension to it. Staff members moved quickly, their faces drawn tight with concern. She caught whispers about the millionaire having had a sudden health problem. No one would speak openly, but the anxiety was palpable. She felt a tight knot in her stomach. Even though she did not know him well personally, she had always respected him. This news made her worry. The first hour was a blur. She cleaned, straightened, and went about her usual tasks, but her mind kept drifting to the news she had overheard. Then, one of the nurses approached her. The millionaire had requested her specifically. The words felt strange in her ears, almost unbelievable. Why would someone like him, surrounded by medical professionals, ask for her? The nurse offered a polite smile, but said nothing more. Leaving her with the weight of the unknown, she followed the nurse into the master bedroom. The millionaire was lying in bed, pale and fragile, his usual composure replaced with vulnerability. She felt a pang of empathy she had not expected. For a moment, she hesitated at the door, uncertain of what to do. Then, she reminded herself that her role was to serve and care, and that meant stepping up, even in ways she had never imagined. He tried to sit up but winced in pain. She quickly moved to help him, steadying him and making sure he was comfortable. The medical staff watched, giving instructions, but he looked at her with an expression that held both relief and trust. Something passed between them in that quiet moment. She didn't know the words to explain it, but she felt needed in a way that went beyond housekeeping. The day stretched long. She helped him eat, encouraged him to drink water, and kept track of his medications. It was exhausting work, physically and emotionally, but she didn't complain. She moved with care, noting which side of the bed he preferred, which pillows were most comfortable, and the small habits that made him feel at ease. She realized that caring for someone went beyond medical routines. It was about attentiveness, understanding, and presence. Hours passed. The millionaire began to relax in her presence. There was a softness to his voice when he spoke to her, a willingness to share thoughts he had kept private. He spoke of frustrations, of the loneliness that wealth sometimes brought, and of moments of fear that no one else seemed to notice. She listened without judgment, her presence a silent reassurance. In her own way, she had become a companion, someone who saw him as more than a powerful figure, but as a human being with needs and fears. Throughout the day, other staff members came and went, some skeptical of her role. Yet she focused on what mattered, the comfort and well-being of the man in front of her. She found herself anticipating his needs before he voiced them. If he reached for water, she had already placed the glass within reach. If he winced in pain, she adjusted his position without waiting to be told. She discovered that care was not about status or job. Description it was about empathy and attentiveness. She remembered times in her life when she had cared for others. Her mother, despite illness, had always been strong. But she had often taken over small tasks, learning the patience and attentiveness that now guided her actions. She had cared for her siblings when they were sick, staying awake through nights, learning how to notice the slightest change in a person's condition. It was not training, not a skill taught in books or schools. It was born from experience, from love, and from a natural instinct to nurture. By late afternoon, the millionaire's condition had stabilized, but the trust between them had deepened. He spoke more openly, asking her opinion on small matters, sometimes sharing thoughts that he hadn't shared with anyone else. She realized the weight of responsibility she now carried. Her role had shifted from housekeeping to something far more significant. It was both daunting and humbling. She noticed little things that made a difference. The softness of his blanket, the placement of a chair where he could rest his legs, even the timing of meals. Each adjustment required attention, foresight, and care. She began to take notes quietly in her small notebook, documenting his preferences, habits, and responses. She understood that these details were vital not just for his comfort, but for his trust. Even during breaks, she could not fully rest. She found herself pacing quietly outside his room, reflecting on the new role she had been thrust into. It was unfamiliar, yet it felt right. She understood that her actions could make a difference in someone's life in ways that went beyond money or status. It was about presence, compassion, and consistency. The evening came with a gentle quiet. The mansion, usually bustling with activity, was hushed. She made sure the millionaire was comfortable for the night, arranging pillows, checking medications, and offering a warm, calm presence. He thanked her quietly, a small gesture that carried profound meaning. She felt a strange sense of fulfillment. The kind that comes from knowing you have made someone's day or even life better through simple thoughtful actions. When she finally left the mansion, her body ached and her mind was heavy with thoughts. Yet, she walked back to her apartment with a sense of purpose and pride. Today had changed something inside her. She realized that her work could touch lives in ways she had never imagined. She thought about the trust the millionaire had placed in her and the responsibility that came with it. It was more than a job now. It was a calling at home. She prepared a modest dinner and sat quietly, reflecting on the day. The tasks had been exhausting, but the moments of connection, of trust, and of care made the fatigue bearable. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she felt ready. She had discovered something important, that her heart, her attentiveness, and her empathy were valuable. They could transform a life, even that of a person who seemed untouchable, distant, and surrounded by everything except the care she could give. She looked out of her window at the city, lights twinkling in the distance. She thought of her family, her dreams, and the small actions that could change a day for someone. She realized that life was full of unexpected roles and responsibilities, and sometimes the most ordinary people could make the most extraordinary impact. She felt a quiet strength within her, a reminder that her dedication and care were not unnoticed. Even if the world outside did not see them, as she drifted to sleep, she felt a mixture of fatigue and hope. Today had been different. It had been a day where her simple, thoughtful presence had mattered in ways she had never imagined. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she was ready. She had begun a journey that would test her, teach her, and perhaps change her life entirely. And she knew that no matter what came, her heart, her hands, and her dedication would guide her through. Step by step, day by day, days turned into weeks, and her presence in the millionaire's life became more than just a helping hand. She moved through the mansion with quiet confidence. It's not because she wanted attention, but because she had grown into a role she had never expected. Each day she noticed small details about him, how he preferred the tea made, the exact softness of the blanket he liked, the way his mood shifted after certain hours. These were things no one else had bothered to notice, and slowly, he began to rely on her more than anyone else in the house at first. The millionaire was hesitant to share personal thoughts, to lower the walls that years of wealth and authority had built around him. But she had a patience that could not be rushed. She listened without judgment, never pressing for answers, never making him feel uncomfortable. And one evening, as the sun cast a golden light through the tall windows, he began to speak. He spoke of loneliness, of the pressures of running a vast empire, and of moments of fear that he had hidden behind a mask of control. She listened quietly, offering small gestures of understanding, a nod, a gentle smile, a hand reaching for his when it seemed he needed comfort. It was not a conversation about wealth or status. It was about humanity, vulnerability, and connection. Other staff members noticed the change. They whispered in corners, wondering how a housekeeper had earned such trust. But she never let the attention sway her. She remained focused on the millionaire's needs, the small acts of care that made a profound difference in his life. She knew that her role had evolved, and with that evolution came responsibility. One she did not take lightly. One afternoon, he asked her to help him with something unusual. He wanted her opinion on the arrangement of his study, on how the office should feel when he spent long hours there. He valued her thoughts in a way that surprised her. She had never expected that her attention to detail and her instinct for comfort would matter in decisions so personal to him. She realized then that her presence was more than physical care. It was emotional and psychological support, too. Her insight and empathy had earned him a trust that few people had achieved. Her days were long and sometimes exhausting. She had responsibilities beyond the mansion family, personal needs, and a life outside the estate. Yet when she was with him, she gave herself fully. She found a rhythm in the work, a satisfaction in the small victories. If he smiled when she adjusted a pillow, if he expressed relief when she anticipated his needs, she felt a quiet pride. These were moments that mattered, even if invisible to the wider world. She also noticed his habits and preferences in subtle ways. He liked the curtains drawn just so in the morning, the windows opened slightly to catch the breeze, and the temperature of the bath water to be exact. She learned to anticipate these needs before he even voiced them. She took quiet joy in knowing that her attention to detail made his day easier, that her care brought him comfort when nothing else could, in quiet moments. She reflected on her own life and the experiences that had prepared her for this role. Caring for her family had taught her patience, attentiveness, and resilience. She had learned to notice the slightest change in someone's mood or health. Skills that now translated naturally to her work in the mansion. She understood that care was not just about tasks completed, but about understanding, connection, and presence. The millionaire began to open up in other ways too. He shared stories from his childhood, moments of regret and small joys he had experienced that few knew about. She listened and offered gentle responses, sometimes laughing quietly with him, sometimes offering words of encouragement. Their interactions were simple, yet profound. They had become a team, bound not by employment or wealth, but by mutual respect and trust. One day, a situation arose that tested the depth of their connection. The millionaire had a medical appointment, and he was anxious about the results. She accompanied him, offering reassurance and steady presence. In the waiting room, she held his hand subtly, a gesture of comfort that spoke louder than words. When the results came, the relief and gratitude in his eyes told her that her care had made a difference. She had been more than a helper. She had been a source of strength. Back at the mansion, the relationship continued to deepen. He began to seek her advice on matters that were not strictly related to health or comfort. He valued her perspective on the smallest details, how a room felt, how the staff interacted, even suggestions for meals that might improve his well-being. She realized that trust was not about power or position, but about understanding, empathy, and consistency. She had become indispensable not because of authority, but because she cared genuinely. Her connection with him also began to teach her about her own strength. She had always believed her role was limited, but now she understood that compassion, attentiveness, and dedication could create bonds that transcended traditional boundaries. She felt a quiet pride in the fact that her natural instincts to nurture had found a place of profound importance. Outside the mansion, life continued as usual. She maintained her commitments to her family, handled her responsibilities, and navigated the challenges of daily life. Yet, the experience in the mansion had changed her perspective. She carried a sense of purpose that went beyond ordinary tasks. She had discovered that her care, her presence, and her heart could impact lives in ways she had never imagined. Evenings were a time of reflection. After the day's work, she would sit quietly in her apartment, replaying moments where her attention had made a difference, where her empathy had reached someone in need. These thoughts gave her energy, reminding her that her efforts were meaningful. The trust she had earned was not just a reward, it was a responsibility that she embraced fully. Through it all, she remained humble. She never sought recognition or praise. Her satisfaction came from knowing she had made a difference in someone's life, from seeing the relief and trust in the millionaire's eyes, and from feeling that her actions mattered. She understood that true influence often came quietly, without announcements or accolades. And that was exactly the kind of influence she valued. Days blended seamlessly, each bringing new challenges and small victories. She continued to observe, listen, and respond with care. She learned to anticipate needs, to understand moods, and to act without hesitation when required. Her dedication became a source of stability for the millionaire, a constant in a life that was otherwise filled with uncertainty and pressure. In these moments, she realized that her life had transformed quietly. She was no longer just a housekeeper performing tasks. She had become a companion, a caregiver, and a trusted presence. Her small acts of kindness, attentiveness, and empathy had grown into something larger than she could have anticipated. She felt proud, not for herself alone, but for the difference she was making in another person's life. The bond between them continued to strengthen. Trust had been established, and respect had been earned. She understood the delicate balance of her role, being supportive without overstepping, caring deeply without expecting anything in return. It was a dance of sensitivity and attentiveness, one that required both intuition and thoughtfulness. She also began to notice subtle changes in herself. Her confidence grew, not in arrogance, but in the quiet assurance that she could handle challenges and responsibilities beyond what she had imagined. She saw that her skills, her patience, and her empathy were valuable in ways that transcended ordinary roles. The mansion, the millionaire, and the experiences she shared there had opened a new chapter in her life, one filled with unexpected trust, meaningful connection, and personal growth. Even as weeks passed, each day felt new and significant. Every small act mattered, the way she arranged a cushion, prepared a meal, or offered a listening ear. She learned to celebrate these moments quietly, understanding that impact was measured not by grand gestures, but by consistent, thoughtful care. The evenings brought a sense of calm. After ensuring the millionaire was comfortable and the house in order, she returned to her apartment, carrying the quiet satisfaction of a day lived with purpose. She reflected on the evolving bond, the trust that had been built, and the lessons learned. She understood that her life had taken on new meaning, one where empathy, dedication, and attentiveness were not just traits, but powerful forces that could change lives. As she drifted off to sleep, she thought of the quiet victories, the moments of connection, and the trust she had earned. She felt a sense of fulfillment and readiness for whatever challenges lay ahead. Her journey was ongoing, and each day brought new opportunities to care, to support, and to impact the life of someone who had, unknowingly, come to depend on her in ways no one else could. Days passed, and the trust between her and the millionaire continued to grow, but with trust came new challenges. Other staff members began to notice her closeness to him and whispered doubts. Some questioned whether she was overstepping her role. She heard the murmurs, but did not let them affect her. She knew her actions were driven by care and dedication, not ambition. Her focus remained entirely on the well-being of the man she had come to understand so deeply. One morning, the millionaire experienced sudden discomfort. His medical team had left instructions, but they were not aware of the small adjustments that made him comfortable. She noticed the subtle signs, the tension in his shoulders, the slight grimace when he shifted. She moved quickly to adjust his position, fetch water, and calm him. The staff were unsure how to respond, but she acted naturally and confidently. Her intuition, honed by years of experience caring for her family, allowed her to anticipate what he needed before he even asked. That day, the millionaire expressed his gratitude in a way that went beyond words. He acknowledged that no one else understood his routines and preferences the way she did. Her dedication had transformed the environment for him, creating comfort and reassurance that money and expertise alone could not achieve. It became clear that her role had evolved far beyond housekeeping. She was an essential presence, a stabilizing force in his life. Even with recognition from him, the challenges continued. She had to navigate the delicate balance of authority and empathy within the household. Some staff members resented her influence, whispering about favoritism or questioning her position. She never confronted them aggressively. Instead, she let her work speak for itself. Her consistency, attention to detail, and care made her indispensable. And over time, the skepticism of others softened. They began to see that her presence was not about power, but about genuine care. One particularly difficult day tested her in ways she had not anticipated. The millionaire had a minor medical emergency. He was anxious, confused, and in pain. The medical team acted efficiently, but it was her calm presence that soothed him. She held his hand, adjusted his pillows, and spoke in a gentle voice, assuring him that he was safe. She realized in that moment that her care had become a bridge between fear and comfort, stability and chaos. It was not training or formal knowledge alone that mattered. It was empathy, intuition, and human connection. She also began to take on responsibilities that were previously handled by the medical staff or household managers. She noted his preferences for medications, the timing of meals, and even subtle cues indicating mood shifts. She recorded these details discreetly in her notebook, ensuring she could provide the highest level of personalized care. Her attention to the smallest things made a profound difference, and the millionaire began to rely on her judgment and instincts in ways he had never relied on anyone else. At the same time, she balanced her personal life. She continued to care for her family, manage her apartment, and maintain her own routines. The workload was heavy, and there were days when fatigue threatened to overwhelm her. But she persevered, drawing strength from the knowledge that her actions mattered. She had discovered a resilience within herself that she had not known existed, a quiet power rooted in empathy and responsibility. As the weeks went on, small gestures of appreciation from the millionaire became more frequent. A simple thank you, a word of acknowledgement, or a moment of eye contact carried profound meaning. She understood that these gestures reflected the trust and respect he had developed for her. The bond they shared was rare, one built on consistency, understanding, and genuine care. Despite the growing challenges and occasional criticism from others, she remained unwavering. Her focus was on providing comfort and stability. She learned to navigate conflicts quietly, using patience and professionalism to maintain harmony within the household. Her calm approach diffused tension and gradually earned the respect of other staff members. They began to see her not as a threat or an outsider, but as someone whose dedication improved the lives of everyone around her. There were moments of reflection when she thought about the path that had led her here. Her upbringing, experiences caring for family members, and natural inclination to nurture had prepared her for this unexpected journey. She realized that the qualities that had once been seen as ordinary were now extraordinary in the context of her role. She felt a sense of pride, not in personal achievement, but in the ability to impact someone's life profoundly. As she lay down to sleep, she thought of the journey that had brought her here from a housekeeper focused on routine tasks to someone whose care had become essential to the well-being of another human being. She felt gratitude for the opportunity to serve, to connect, and to grow. She knew that her life had been transformed by the trust and bond she had cultivated, and that the impact of her actions would continue to resonate. Her story was a testament to the power of empathy, dedication, and genuine care. She had learned that ordinary people could make extraordinary differences through attentiveness, patience, and consistency. She had discovered strength within herself, a quiet confidence rooted in the knowledge that her presence mattered. The mansion, the millionaire, and the experiences she shared had shaped a new chapter in her life, one filled with purpose, connection, and enduring impact. As the night deepened, she rested with a sense of fulfillment. The journey was ongoing, but she had grown into a role that had brought meaning, trust, and transformation. Her heart, her hands, and her attention had become instruments of change, proving that even the most humble beginnings could lead to extraordinary influence. She drifted to sleep with peace, knowing that she had lived a life that mattered in ways both quiet and profound, and that her journey would continue with compassion, strength, and unwavering dedication. Months had passed since she had first stepped into the role that had grown beyond housekeeping. Each day brought new responsibilities, challenges, and moments that tested her patience, empathy, and skill. She had grown into a trusted presence, someone who could provide comfort, guidance, and reassurance in ways no one else could. Her life had transformed quietly but profoundly, and she had begun to see the broader impact of her care. The millionaire's health remained fragile at times, and she had learned to anticipate fluctuations in his condition with an accuracy that surprised even herself. She noticed subtle changes in his expression, in his breathing, in the way he held himself. These signs, invisible to most, guided her actions. She adjusted his surroundings, prepared meals suited to his needs, and ensured that every detail contributed to his comfort and stability. It was exhausting work, both physically and emotionally, but she carried it with a sense of purpose that never wavered. One morning, she arrived earlier than usual, feeling the familiar calm of the estate before the household fully awakened. The sun had not yet risen, casting long shadows through the hallways. She moved quietly, preparing the rooms, arranging the furniture, ensuring that the mansion exuded a sense of order and peace. Even in these small, seemingly routine tasks, she found satisfaction, knowing that each detail contributed to the comfort of those who lived within its walls. As she entered the master bedroom, she noticed the millionaire looking unusually tense. His face reflected worry, a departure from the calm he usually projected in her presence. She approached carefully, offering a gentle greeting and asking if there was anything he needed. He hesitated, then shared concerns about upcoming business decisions and health appointments. She listened attentively, offering support through presence rather than words. Her steady demeanor provided reassurance, allowing him to release some of the anxiety that had weighed on him. The morning unfolded with a mixture of routine tasks and moments of attentive care. She prepared breakfast, ensuring that it met his dietary needs and preferences. She adjusted pillows, blankets, and seating to maximize comfort. Each movement was deliberate, guided by observation and understanding. She had learned that the smallest details often carried the greatest significance, and she approached her work with a mindfulness that reflected both experience and empathy. During mid-morning, she accompanied him on a short walk through the estate gardens. The air was crisp, and the flowers bloomed with vibrant colors. She observed him carefully, noting signs of fatigue or discomfort. She adjusted his pace and offered support as needed. The walk was quiet but meaningful, a time for connection beyond words. The simple act of being present, of attending to his needs and observing his reactions, had become an essential aspect of their relationship. Back in the mansion, she continued her tasks while maintaining a watchful eye. She coordinated with the medical team, ensuring that medications and treatments were administered on schedule. She anticipated needs before they were voiced, prepared for potential emergencies, and remained a constant source of stability. The trust the millionaire placed in her had deepened, and she felt a quiet responsibility to honor that trust through consistent care. Her own reflections during these moments were profound. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from a housekeeper performing routine tasks to a trusted companion who could provide comfort, guidance, and emotional support. She realized that her life had changed not because of wealth or opportunity alone, but because of the choices she had made, the empathy she had shown, and the dedication she had brought to her work each day. One afternoon, an unexpected challenge arose. The millionaire received distressing news about a personal matter that left him unsettled and anxious. She immediately recognized the signs of distress and moved to offer comfort. She guided him to a quiet room, prepared a warm beverage, and encouraged him to share his thoughts if he wished. Her presence was calming, her attention focused entirely on him, providing reassurance without judgment. Over time, he began to relax, expressing gratitude for her understanding and support. She noticed that her own emotional strength had grown in response to these challenges. She had learned to manage stress, maintain composure, and provide care even in difficult circumstances. Her empathy, once instinctual, had become a refined skill, allowing her to navigate complex situations with sensitivity and insight. She had grown in ways that extended beyond the household, gaining confidence, resilience, and a deeper understanding of human connection. Evening approached, bringing a sense of quiet to the mansion. She completed her tasks, ensured that the rooms were prepared for the night, and confirmed that the millionaire was comfortable. The house was serene, the day's challenges behind them. She reflected on the moments where her care had made a difference, the relief on his face, the trust evident in his gestures, and the subtle improvements in his comfort and well-being. These reflections reinforced her sense of purpose and fulfillment. Her family continued to benefit from the stability she had created in her life. She shared insights, guidance, and support with her siblings, providing both practical assistance and emotional encouragement. The skills and resilience she had developed in the mansion extended into her personal life, strengthening her relationships and enhancing her ability to contribute meaningfully to the lives of those she loved. Over time, she realized that her role had become multifaceted. She was not only a caretaker, but also a confidant, an advisor, and a stabilizing presence. Her observations, insights, and attentiveness were valued in both practical and emotional matters. She understood that trust, once earned, could become a foundation for meaningful influence. Allowing her to impact lives beyond the immediate tasks of housekeeping, her relationship with the millionaire evolved to reflect mutual respect and appreciation. He relied on her for guidance, valued her judgment, and expressed gratitude in ways that were both subtle and significant. She, in turn, maintained her humility, recognizing that her role was not about authority, but about consistent, thoughtful care. The bond they shared had grown into a partnership of sorts, one built on empathy, trust, and understanding. Her personal growth continued alongside her professional responsibilities. She had developed patience, resilience, and emotional intelligence that allowed her to handle complex situations with composure. She had learned to anticipate needs, navigate challenges, and provide support without expectation of recognition. Her confidence had grown, grounded in the knowledge that her actions made a meaningful difference in the life of someone who would come to rely on her. As night fell, she prepared for rest, reflecting on the day's events. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the challenges she had faced, and the growth she had experienced. Her sense of fulfillment was quiet but profound, rooted in the knowledge that her dedication, empathy, and care had created a lasting impact. She understood that even small, consistent actions could shape lives, foster trust, and provide comfort in ways that were deeply meaningful. She drifted to sleep with a sense of peace and accomplishment. Her life, once ordinary, had transformed into one of purpose and significance. The trust she had earned, the bond she had cultivated, and the care she had provided had created a foundation for continued growth, connection, and fulfillment. She felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in her ability to navigate them with empathy, attentiveness, and unwavering dedication. Her journey had shown her the profound power of human connection, the importance of presence, and the lasting impact of consistent care. She understood that her role, though humble in title, had become extraordinary in its significance. Each day offered opportunities to make a difference, to provide comfort, and to foster trust. And she embraced each opportunity fully, knowing that her life, her actions, and her heart had the capacity to touch lives in ways that were both quiet and transformative.